All right, we're back. Graveyard Shift Movie Podcast, episode number 150. And this week, I ended up watching Jeepers Creepers from 2001. This was my first time watching the movie. All I knew about the movie is that the guy that directed it, raped a kid. um, in the 80s or something. Like, I think it was during the filming of another movie. Um, but yeah, I'm not 100% sure on what everything that took place. I don't think the guy got convicted, but I might be wrong. But it's like, I think known that, like, yeah, he did it. Um, but yeah, so that's literally all I knew about the movie. Never watched it. I knew that there's a couple of sequels. I believe there's Jeepers Creepers 2, and then they made another one just a couple years ago. But I'd never seen it. Honestly, I thought it was a kid's movie. I don't know, Jeepers Creepers. I mean, that sounds like a kid's horror movie to me. But it's not a kid's horror movie, and it's pretty good. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. It gets straight into it for the most part. Justin Long is in it, which I was surprised to see him. This is his second time on the podcast since he was in Barbarian. Um, but yeah, it was very. It definitely is not a kids movie. There's a lot of a lot of cussing. There's I was gonna say there's some decent kills, but not really. Some people get killed, but I don't think you ever see anything. One guy gets decapitated, but you don't actually see the decapitation. You just see like the head on the ground afterwards. And you see like some dead bodies and stuff, but yeah, I don't think there's anything too graphic in that nature. But it was pretty good. Justin Long is really good. The lady who plays his sister was really good. I really liked their dynamic together. Um, I enjoyed their chemistry as siblings. Um, and yeah, it's just all right. There was no. I was expecting there to be a whole like town conspiracy involving what was going on with the killer and stuff, and expecting people in the town to be evil. But no, everyone in the town that they end up in ends up being pretty decent people, which I was surprised about. Uh, and yeah, so that's about it for the spoiler free portion of Jeepers Creepers. If you've never seen Jeepers Creepers, I'm about to ruin everything about it. So spoiler warning. You've been warned. The movie starts off with Justin Long and his sister, who in the movie her name is Trish, I believe. I don't remember what Justin Long's name is. But they're a brother and sister. They're on their way home for spring break, and they're driving. They're driving down this road, like in the middle of nowhere. It's some bumblefuck town. It's just a long, dry road with nothing around. Um, they turn on the radio and they're flipping through the stations, and every station is just like a preacher talking about God. And I thought there was going to be a lot more religious aspects of the movie, but there's not really. Um, they're chilling. They're vibing, talking to each other. And there's this really cool shot where earlier Justin Long had gone around this RV that was going slow in front of them. Uh, and so the whole time as they're talking, the camera is like where the rear view mirror would be, and it's pointing backwards. So you can see the RV. The RV turns off of a road, and you see this other, beat down looking truck coming up behind them. And it stays with that shot the whole time, and that thing speeds up right on their ass. And it starts honking at them. And getting not hitting them, but getting right up on it where it looks like he's about to hit them. Justin Long keeps trying to get out of the way, but it follows him in whichever lane they go in. And they're like, "What the fuck is going on with this guy?" And they keep trying to get out, and eventually, finally, the guy goes driving by, um, and he passes them by. Uh, After that, they're driving a little bit more, and the sister is talking about how that just creeped her out because they had friends named Ken and Darwin who went missing around this part of town, and they never found their heads, and they only found like their car and stuff. And she's like, it just freaks me out driving, driving through here. And he's like, listen, that was all just rumors that they only found, or that they never found their heads. We can't believe all that shit. A little bit further down the road, they end up passing by this beat down church that's on the side of the road. And wouldn't you know it, parked in front of the church is the truck that was hassling them on the road. And there's a guy in a black trench coat and a black like cowboy's hat who is dumping very clearly a dead body wrapped in a sheet down like a pipe. Like, it's not hidden at all. It's not like maybe in like trash bags or anything. No, it's like a generic, like if you went to Party City or Spirit Halloween during Halloween and they would have like a corpse wrapped in a sheet that you put in your yard, that's what he's throwing down that pipe. And they're like, holy shit. And as they're passing him, he notices that they're and for certain, Justin Long like slows down so he can like go by. And so they basically make eye contact with this guy. And of course, when you know it, he ends up getting in the fucking truck to come after them. So Trish goes to call the police, but Justin Long's phone is dead. And so that does them no good. The guy in the truck speeds up behind them and starts slamming into the back of their phone. Or not phone. Into the back of their car. Eventually, Justin Long takes some evasive maneuvers and he fucking yanks the wheel to the left and goes driving into like a field through a fence to get away from the guy. And that ends up working. The guy ends up driving straight by and they get away. That will, though, for the rest of the movie, every time they get in this car, it's more and more fucked up because of the treatment that it keeps happening throughout the movie to it. So every time they get in these cars, like the gear shift isn't fucking working, and it always, every time, without failure, they always have to like try different gears, or at one point they can only go in reverse, but then all of a sudden it works perfect. They never really explain how it went from can't fucking go and drive to it's fine, we got it. So they check out their car in the field. Like I said, everything's all right for right now, but obviously it got beat up. Justin Long wants to go back to the church because he says that whoever was thrown down the pipe might still be alive and they might need their help. But Trish is like, fuck that, we're not going back. But he's like, what would you do if that was you, Or what would you want someone to do if that was you? And so she's like, fine, but I'm not getting out of the car. Spoiler, she immediately gets out of the car when they get there. They pull up, like I said, it's this old-ass church. It is legit just like a pipe sticking out of the ground, like it looks like a Mario pipe if you painted it black. That's what's that's what's in front of this church. Also, I forget, I got a text during this part, and so I paused the movie on Prime to look at my text, and then unpaused it. And when you pause a movie on Prime or look at it, you can see like it tells you like the cast and who they're playing or whatever. It was Trish, played by whoever, Justin Long, and then it was Dying Boy under there. And I went, well, gee, I wonder what they're gonna find in this fucking in this fucking pipe. So Justin Long goes over to the pipe. He's leaning into it with a flashlight, and he's calling. He's like, "Hello, does anyone need our help?" and shit. And eventually, they hear a kid call back to them. So Justin Long is like, "Listen, I'm going down there. He needs our help." And then his sister gets super meta And she's like, you know that part in horror movies where someone does something really fucking stupid and everyone gets mad at them? This is that moment. And he's like, listen, we got to do it, you know? So he's not going to go fully into the pipe. He's just going to extend his body down the pipe, and she's going to hold on to his feet so he doesn't go all the way down. So they do that, and he's calling down there, and he's like, hello, is anyone there? And he keeps going, something's moving down here. I keep seeing something moving. But it ends up being a bunch of fucking rats that are hanging out in this pipe, and they come crawling in his face, and then they go by him and go up to Trish and start jumping on her arms. So she lets go of Justin Long, and Justin Long falls down this pipe. We get a whole slow-mo shot of him, like, dramatically falling towards the ground, and he fucking hits the ground and gets knocked out. Eventually he wakes up and he's able to stumble to his feet. His hand is cut and shit. He lost his shoes. He has to put his shoes back on. And he's looking for a way to get out of this fucking sewer basement that he found himself in. But when he's looking around, he ends up seeing that body that we saw thrown down here that's wrapped in a sheet. Of course, he goes walking over there to check it out, and this fucking hand pops out from underneath and grabs his ankle, and he's like, holy shit, you know? And he's able to get his ankle away from the guy, and he pulls the sheet, and we see like a dude staring up at him. And the dude's like, oh, look at my fucking stomach stitches. And just like, he just yanks the covers off. So we see that on his stomach, it's like, it looks like organs have been ripped out of him. And he's been stitched back up and thrown down here. And then he tries to tell Justin Long something before he dies. But he, you know, he's not able to say whatever it is before he ends up dying. He tells Trish to go to the road and flag down a car for help. And he's like, if you see that truck coming, fucking get out of the way, you know, and hide or whatever. And he thinks that he can find a way in through the basement at the old church that's right next to them. So that's why he goes looking for a way into the church. As he's doing that, though, there's a great fucking reveal of Justin Long kneeling down to tie his shoes, because his shoes got caught up on like a nail or something coming down the pipe, and they untied. And over his shoulder, we start seeing all these bodies revealed by sunlight that's coming in. And when he looks up, there's hundreds and hundreds of bodies all over this place that are all stitched up and missing different body parts. And decorating the walls and stuff. It looks like a super fucked up like church painting of with like the babies with the dicks out and the wings and shit, but it's bodies with stitches and missing heads. But yeah, so he sees all these bodies and he's like, holy fuck, you know? So we go up to Trish, who's sitting. She's moved the car to the road, and she's sitting on the hood of the car, and she's like fucking falling asleep. And so coming from the road behind her, we see a truck that looks exactly like the truck that ran them off of the road before. And she waits until it's like right up on her to be like, oh fuck, and get in the car and try to leave. And I was like, he's already seen you, bitch. There's nothing you can do. But it ends up being a completely different truck, and so it wasn't the guy who ran them off the road. That scene reminded me a lot of Funny Games, back to episode 2 of the podcast, where who was the wife in that movie? God, I can't remember. But she's trying to flag down a car, and the first car that goes by, spoiler for Funny Games, the first car that goes by, she doesn't flag it down because she's like, oh, it could be those guys. And then she flags down the next car, and that ends up being the one that was the killers in it. So anyway, she misses the truck, and she's like, oh. But none of that ends up mattering because right after that, Justin Long jumps up on the window next to her and scares the fuck out of her. So I guess he found the basement and he found a way out. She's like, "Oh, you fucking scared me, asshole." And she's trying to like bicker with him, but he just has like this blank look on his face. And she's like, "Justin, are you okay?" Once again, his name's not Justin, but it's Justin. Let's be honest. So they get in the car. They go driving into town. He tells the sister as they're driving that, everything they heard about Ken and them or whatever is true. And they were missing their heads. And he's like, "I found all these fucking bodies in the basement and shit." And the sister's like, "Yeah, okay, you hit your head pretty hard." They end up getting into town and they stop at this old diner where they go inside. On their way into the diner, they see the truck that ran them off the road heading down the road back towards the church, presumably with another victim to dump down the pipe. So then they go inside and they ask to call the cops, and so like the manager lady at the diner goes to call the cops, and as they're sitting there, the phone next to them starts ringing. And this one guy is like, "Aren't you going to pick it up?" So Trish ends up answering the phone first, but the lady's asking for Justin Long. So she gives Justin Long the phone. And my God, this is the most frustrating fucking phone call I've seen in I don't know how long. Where, to be fair, the lady is like talking in riddles and you can't, but some of the stuff she spells out pretty perfectly. She's like, "Yeah, that guy's evil. I don't know what he's doing, but he's killing a bunch of people." And Justin Long just keeps going, "What? What? What does that mean? What?" And just keeps saying what and what does that mean on a loop over and over again. And Trish keeps trying to grab the phone to bring her ear to listen in, and he keeps pulling away from her, and she keeps doing it. And this goes on for like 2.5 fucking minutes. It's so frustrating. Anyway, in the phone call, she's talking about how you guys found that thing's House of Pain, and all I can think, and she doesn't know whether or not it's a demon or a person. All she knows is that whatever it is, it's evil. She then says, "All right, listen to this." And she puts the phone up to a vinyl player that's playing a record that's going, "Jeepers, creepers, where'd you get those peepers? Jeepers, creepers, where'd you get those eyes?" Or something like that. And she says, "If you hear this fucking song, you fucking get the fuck out of there." Because shit's about to go down. And then he goes, "Oh yeah? Well, fuck you." And hangs up. And I was like, "All right, Justin, that lady was nothing but nice to you. I don't know why you cussed her." So they go and get a table. Justin Long is telling her about everything he found in the basement. And it's very clear that the sister does not believe him. And it gets to the point where he's begging her. He's like, "You gotta believe me. You gotta believe me." And she's like, but before she can answer, the cops that they came here to call end up showing up. And they come over and they're like, "Hey, we got some people heading over to that church." But they question the validity of his statements. And they're like, "Listen, you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of bodies. This is a big fucking story if it's true." And he's like, "It's fucking true. I'm telling you." As they're in the middle of arguing, the waitress at the diner comes over and she's like, "Isn't that y'all's car out front?" And they go out front and we see that the back door is thrown open and dirty laundry is strewn out like on the ground. And they fucking like do 3 like din, dun, din, like zoom in 3 times and make it like the most dramatic fucking thing. And I was like, it's just clothes on the. It looks like a bear. There was honey in there, and the bear got in to get your fucking food. But anyway, I found it funny how dramatic they made it looking. they tell him that they saw a guy in a black coat and a black hat who was sniffing their laundry. And this was the first time that I remember thinking, earlier on in the movie, the sister had had looked inside his laundry bag and was like, "Ugh, this is gross." And she took an air freshener that was in the car, and threw it into the bag. And I was like, "Oh, does he like the fucking like air freshener sound? What's the deal with that?" So the Justin Long tells the cops, he's like, "Do you believe me now? Someone's out to fucking kill us." And so they all agree that they're going to go over to the church together and they're going to investigate it. So Justin Long and his sister are driving in front and the cops are following them. As they're flipping channels, they end up coming across a radio station that's playing the Jeepers Creepers song. And I was like, hey, shouldn't we be worried? That lady said if you hear that, it's fucking a bad day. And as I was thinking that, Jeepers Creepers dude ends up jumping onto the roof of the cop car and reaching in and yanking the woman police officer out of the car and fucking throwing her away or whatever. And then he punches in through the roof, grabs the head of the cop that's driving, brings him up and takes an axe and cuts his head off with an axe. He then floors the car and bumps into the people in front of them, so they all swerve and stop in the road. Trish gets out stupidly to go and walk over to the police car, and she's like, "Hey, are you guys all right? Hey, you know." And we see a guy sitting in the driver's seat. But as she's coming around, we see that in the front of the police car is the severed head of the cop. And as she sees that, the car door opens up. And Jeepers Creeper dude gets out and goes walking over to the head. As he's walking, he's whistling the fucking... the Jeepers Creeper song. And he picks up the head off the road and he starts fucking sniffing it and shit. And then I thought he was making out with it. I thought he started making out with the severed head. But it ends up being that he's ripping out its fucking tongue. He's bitten down on the tongue and he's pulling it out with his teeth. And that's the time that Justin Long and Trish are like, "Hey, let's get the fuck out of here." And so they get in their car and they speed away. They end up coming across this house that's on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere. They stop to ask for help. And it ends up being just this old woman who has fucking dozens and dozens of cats with her. And they're like, "We need help. Someone's been killed." And the lady's like, "Oh, well, don't tell them to come to my house." You know? But as they're talking, it's a cool, the wind just stops. We see there's all these fans and there's a windmill because she lives on this farm. And the fan is going and then it just fucking in a dead stop, not slows down, just and the windmill, same thing. It just stops completely. And she's like, "Ooh, something's going on." And they look over and Jeepers Creeper dude is standing at the edge of her cornfield. And she goes, "That ain't my scarecrow." And so she goes and gets her double barrel shotgun and comes out and stands next to Trish and Justin Long. And she's like, "You need to get the fuck out of here." But he doesn't move. So she shoots him. Then there's a explosion where he was standing. And he goes flying into the air and lands on the roof of her house. And I apparently either crashed through her roof and got in, or went in through a chimney or something. Either way, he got into her house. So the old lady is going to go back into the house, and Justin Long grabs her and he's like, "If you go in there, you're going to fucking die. That dude's a killer, you know?" And she kicks Justin Long in the dick. And she's like, "This is my fucking house. I ain't letting him come in there, you know?" Um, so she goes running into the house. They hear the shotgun go off 2 more times. And then the old lady comes back to the door and just stands there, like staring out. And they're like, "Hello? Are you okay?" And then we see really cool. The Jeepers Creepy dude has stabbed her like through the back with a spear or something, and he's holding her off of the ground, and he like floats her over to the front door, and then he like sticks his head out from behind her shoulder, and we get our first look at Jeepers Creeper dude's face, and it's just this weird demon face. It kind of looks like he has like armored plates on his face and like these sharp teeth. But yeah, and they see his face, and once again, that's when they're like, "All right, time to get out of here." This is the part that I said how they get in, and the car is fucking stuck on reverse. And so they go to reverse it and run him over. But he does a sweet fucking backflip and jumps over the car. And then it works fine. They can get in and drive, and they keep trying to hit him, and every time he just runs over the car each time they come to hit him. Eventually they end up succeeding, and they hit him, and he's on the ground, and then Trish proceeds to run him over 5 or 6 times in a row, really going all in on the running him over, which I appreciated. Eventually Justin Long stops her, and he's like, "Listen, he's fucking dead, you know?" And we see his legs and his arms are all squished like fucking Play-Doh. And I was like, all right, he's dead. And then he sprouted wings. And I went, hold up. Where the fuck did this come from? I thought that he was going to blossom out like a butterfly from a cocoon. And he was going to be like a new form of himself. But no, he just like sprouts wings. And then they just he doesn't fly away. It just sort of falls over. And then they put it in drive one more time and run them over again. And they go to speed away and get the fuck away from them. Eventually they make it to a police station to call their parents. And, let them know what's going on. As they're there, there's a shot of Justin Long looking at this missing persons board. And, clearly he's like, oh, fuck, how many of these people, are in that pipe, dead already. And so as they're standing in the police station, this lady comes in, and she comes straight up to Justin Long and Trish, and she's like, "Oh my God, you guys are okay." And it ends up being the lady that talked to them on the phone, and she's played by Patricia Belcher. I believe that's how you pronounce her name. If you look her up, you will recognize her. You might not know what you know her from, but you know her, and so I was very surprised to see her in this movie. But yeah, she's here. She's like, "Oh, I'm so glad you guys are, okay, She ends up telling them that she can dream shit, and she's able to see all this stuff. And she dreams that they woke up in a hole with bodies and shit. She asks them if they've met the cats yet, and that's a moment where they're like, "Oh, fuck, all right, this lady's telling the truth, because there's no way she could have known about these cats, She then proceeds to tell them that every 23rd spring, this thing, whatever it is, gets to eat for 23 days. It needs different body parts to keep it alive, so it takes different body parts from different people. It takes eyes if it needs to see, it takes a heart if it needs to heart, takes lungs if it needs to breathe, all this shit, and whatever it eats then becomes a part of itself. And that made me wonder if the wings are already a part of it, or if there's like an extraterrestrial story with this thing. Maybe not even extraterrestrial. Maybe he could just eat like a bat or something and he gets wings, but not like little tiny bat wings, but like real wings. But it made me wonder if he's like ate these different creatures from time, and to get these wings or whatever these special abilities are he has. She then also says that he picks his victims by smells, and he can smell something that he likes, and he'll go after it. And that made me think that this whole movie was going to be a big misunderstanding, because it ended up being that Jeepers Creepers dude smelled the air freshener that was in the laundry bag, and that's what he wanted, was the air freshener, not their body parts. And I was going to be like, holy shit, the sister just caused all this by throwing the air freshener in the laundry bag. Of course, while they're in the middle of talking, all the lights in the station goes out, and all the phones go out and everything, and power is completely off at the police station. They then have to take an emergency head count. And apparently this thing doubles as a prison, because it doesn't just look like a jail where, like, oh, you know, you're in the drunk tank, you stay in here for the night or something. It's like people have bunks, and there's prison, you know. And so they send the cop into the basement where these jail cells are to take head count of everybody. And eventually he sees these two guys who are like cowering in this corner. And he's like, what the fuck? And they like point over. And he goes into the next cell where he sees Jeepers Creepers dude with his wings sprouted, and he's naked and shit. And he's eating different body parts, mostly hands and arms, off of this guy in the jail cell, because we saw his arms were all fucked and his legs were fucked from being run over. And he's taking them off of this guy to give to himself. And he radios up and he's like, we got a situation down here. So, he tells them that they got a situation coming up the back or the rear stairwell. Patricia Belcher takes this moment to tell Justin Long and them. She's like, all right, y'all come with me. Let's get the fuck out of here. So they go running, trying to leave. They then, we then go to the cops who are all lined up waiting for the stairs. And one of them like stands up and he's like, what are we doing? This is stupid. And then the next thing you know, just a hole forms in his chest, and his fucking heart is gone. And they're like, holy shit, what the fuck? And then we go over to Justin Long and them, and we hear all the cops in the hallway shooting. And they shoot for a little bit, but then eventually it just gets real quiet in the hallway. They try to get out the back door, but it's locked. They can't fucking get out. Justin Long and Trish end up going into a different room because Patricia Belcher is going to try to stall for time. And Jeepers Creepers dudes ends up coming. He's crawling on the wall now, and he comes around the corner and comes crawling towards Patricia, and she like ducks down to pray. But he goes past her, and she's like, oh, you know? And so she stands up, but then he grabs her at the back by the back of the head and pulls her head down, and he starts to smell her and shit. But apparently he was like, oh, bitch, you stand, and threw her down. He was like, I don't want you. So he leaves her alone, and he goes after Justin Long and them. Eventually, he ends up catching them inside of like a DNA testing room, weirdly enough. He corners them both, and he's smelling them both. And at first, I thought that it was going to be he didn't like either one of their smells. And I was going to be like, holy shit, my theory about the air freshener was true. But it ends up being, I guess he liked Justin Long's smell, because he throws the sister out of the way. He grabs Justin Long. And the next thing you know, like the whole riot squad rolls in, and they're pointing their guns at him. And they're like, hey man, don't fucking do anything crazy, you know? And Trish is trying to, also, the guy, as he's holding Justin Long, his face sprouts into a new phase where he looks like the dinosaur from Jurassic Park, and like has the shits, you know? And his teeth pop out, and he's screaming at them and shit. Trish is trying to tell him that whatever he wants, you know, he can have from her, and to leave Justin Long alone. But he's like, fuck that shit. And he takes Justin Long and flies out the window and flies away. And then we go over to this like industrial area, like this construction site, abandoned construction site, and we go inside, and Justin Long is just strung up with his eyeballs missing, and he's dead as fuck. Justin Long died. I was not expecting that. And then Jeepers Creeper dude goes behind Justin Long, so his eye like comes out of Justin Long's eye, and that is the end of Jeepers Creepers. This movie had a budget of $10 million, made a box office of $59 million. Let's do best of, worst of. My worst of is absolutely the fucking phone call where I had to listen to, what? What do you mean? What? I hated it. It was terrible. It annoyed me so fucking much. Yeah, I hate it. My favorite part is gonna be the them keeping the camera on Justin Long and Trish as the truck is speeding up behind them, and trying to knock them off of the road. I like the reveal of the RV turning and we see the car. I thought it was really well done. So that is it. That is best of, worst of. And that's it for Jeepers Creepers. Like I said, it's pretty fucking good if you can get over the fact that the director and writer is a piece of shit. Yeah, the sequels, maybe I'll check. I know that the second one didn't come out too long after the first one. And then there was like a 15-year break before they made the third one. So maybe one day I'll get around to watching them. But I don't have anytime soon on that. But yeah, it's pretty good. Justin Long. I always have a soft spot in my heart for Justin Long. He was just in a bunch of fucking movies I watched growing up, so I'm always excited to see him. Yeah. So, next week, I have no idea. Once again, I gotta sit down and like get a list together of movies to add down. But I'm just fucking shooting from the hip right now, and I just find one to watch and pick that. So I don't know. I don't know what it'll be next week, but it'll be something. I'll be here to talk about it. Go over, check out the gaming channel. I just wrapped up my Sleeping Dogs playthrough over there. So there'll be, I think there's 3 Sleeping Dog videos out. I'm completely done with that game. Me and Maverick are playing through Dead Island Riptide right now. We're having a great time. So eventually there'll be a video about that. I'm planning on playing through a bunch of Resident Evil stuff. Dead Rising will probably be coming up pretty soon. And yeah. Anyway, started watching Dahmer. Maybe I'll do a review on Dahmer. It's not great. It's very much like, it's like, how did no one... It's like, it's made for TV, so, or not made for TV, but it's, they're not exaggerating stuff either, because, I mean, the guy did kill and eat people, but, his house is, like, full of satanic Bibles and bleach, and, like, the smell of rotting flesh, like, it's like, the dude would have got caught way sooner if this was really how it was like, it's just silly, some of the stuff that was going on in the show. But anyway, so shout out to Dahmer. I'm very late on that. Everyone watched that fucking like 2 years ago, but whatever. Also, speaking of not horror, I finished watching Mr. Show with Bob and Dave. It's on HBO Max. If you've never watched that, it's Bob Odenkirk and David Cross. Their sketch show for HBO in the 90s. Tom Kenny, who voices SpongeBob, is in a lot of it, and it's very weird hearing him say filthy things. But it was fun to watch. And then I realized that they made a second show. They only made one season of it on Netflix, where they basically were just doing the same show again. So I got to watch that too. But that was a good time. Yeah, a lot of hit. But I've been diving into a big David Cross hole recently. I've been watching a lot of his stand-up and shit. So yeah, go check out Mr. Show if you're in the very weird fucking comedy. That's the best way I can describe that. But besides that, like I said, go check out the gaming channel. I'll be here next week to talk about something. And that's about it. So I will see you guys next week. Bye bye.